Howdy, you delicious people. I'm here today to review The Matrix Reloaded. So, I think the main reason why I went into doing this movie was simply because I just had done the Matrix Resurrections review. And when really thumbing through that and thinking it through, there was stuff that I'd probably forgotten talking about in that movie, and it still just bugs the crap out of me. But I'm not going to go re through and take that video down and put something else up because it just wouldn't go that well. It really wouldn't. Uh, as much as people be like, well, you could just do this, you could just do another video, you could just do a part two, you could do whatever. Like, there's people that do like spoiler and spoiler free. I would rather do the one-off experience and just have it just bug the crap out of me than go on and have to uh I would rather be tortured with my own brain, just like, oh, you forgot this and you forgot four other things, because I felt like that way after doing No Way Home, where I'm like, I don't want to re-go through and talk about that whole movie just to put in two scenes. But I feel like I probably do that for every film, where there's always something that I forgot and then I regret it afterwards. Even the stuff I reviewed today, I was like, oh my god, I forgot about this part of The Witcher. Oh, I forgot. Oh. So, going into this one, there is a slathering of dialogue that's going on in this film. But we do have a lot of really cool action sequences. Yeah, we end up getting freaking slapped with dialogue. It just beats the crap out of us with dialogue. But then it also has beating the crap out of other people, and then so we have to be satisfied with that. So, here's the thing. I actually like this film. Some people may feel drastically different about Reloaded, and I can completely understand that. Some people may hate this film. Some people may hate anything that happens after The Matrix, and I can completely understand that. Because really, that whole dialogue thing. There's so much dialogue in this movie. And not only that, we have a movie that wants to say that it's like, hey man, we're really smart. But when you really look at it, we have three characters that are having the exact same theme, and they're just really breaking it down how they really just see one thing. And I'm like, that's not really all that creative, because the theme of this movie is choice. Really, when it's all broken down. And so every bit of this movie has somebody going on and saying like, well, I'm like, what should we choose to do here? Like, what makes us really go on and think about this? And why do we have these machines helping us live our lives? And good God, like, why do you have to have such a mind effing moment with, like, hey, you know what? I can't really sleep because I'm so just interested about why these machines do what they do. Do you have that problem, Keanu? Do you have that problem, Neo? One guy? Why? Anyways, so, but we have choice. We either have to be told in this film that we have already made the choice and now we have to figure out why, or we have to go into cause and effect, causality, and we have to be told that the only people who actually do have choice have power. And we also have a woman that eats cake at some point. And then we also have, at the end of this movie, really just told, hey, like, all this is already happening. world is going to end. But hey, door number 1 or door number 2? Like the classic game show thing where it's like, hey, yeah, like, since you are the grand prize champion and you have won this movie, you have won at the end of this game, you end up getting to pick 2 magical doors. Door number 1 is your own salvation, or door number 2 is, why even pick that door? F that door. Go into the one where you're fine. F everybody else. Like, they already chosen their fate, because technically they didn't choose it, because this movie will tell you that it's like, oh no, like, they didn't choose, the choice is already made because they were stubborn, and so now they have to understand why they made that choice by all of them getting wiped out. It's pretty much what the film is. But then Neo is like, no, I am that one line of sand where, like, I am just going to make all of this bubkiss. And Neo consistently continues to showcase that throughout this entire film, that Neo is going to guard that line and nothing's getting through. No matter what he has to do, no matter how ridiculously fast he has to fly and figure out where the heck any of these people are, and I don't know how he does it, where he just knows where everybody else is through the whole entire gosh darn Matrix. This guy has to find everybody and fly in and just like, oh my god! Wow! So, with that said, let's go into the spoilers of all this, and I hope that I can break this all easily down, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff to go ahead and talk about. So let's go into it. Let's go into that double 5, because it's otherwise that time again to go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about the time you to spoil this movie. I'll be honest, before we get started on this, 1, you can go ahead and see this on HBO Max. Dare in fact watch this on HBO Max if you probably haven't already, because you're probably making your way through the franchise to make your way to Resurrections, if you want to watch that kind of thing. And the other thing is that I was kind of really stressing about this review, because I'm like, oh my god, there's so much stuff in this film. I have gone through a lot of complex and complicated movies, but man, was I just like knuckling it. I was like, weird things were happening with body while I was like, oh my god, this movie has so much stuff in it. How am I going to remember all this and perfectly line it within the film? So, F it. We're going to try our best here, and let's go out of our way to spoil the F out of this. So, the very beginning of this movie, we of course have Trinity at this power plant, power station, a place that is to deal with this thing called power. Trinity is going through and bringing a motorcycle into and crashing via this like little security room, and going through and blasting her way through a bunch of security guards, making her way through this power station, or this power place. And then we have this weird, goofy transition where all of a sudden Trinity is falling with these guns in hand. And all of a sudden we have, I believe, Agent Thomas jumping after her, and he's just gunning away. We end up seeing a bullet possibly going into Trinity's chest as she's just firing her guns away. and all of a sudden Neo is to wake up from this dream. So we have it where now Neo has this like Anakin, like Professor Xavier seeing the future kind of thing. So you would think that Neo would be able to dream or be able to know every single thing that's going on to where he can just beat everything out because he already can just brain dream think of what's going on. But I guess he doesn't clearly have that 100% ability to just see it all. So Neo is having problems sleeping because he continues to have this nightmare. So Neo is to, of course, go on and is to just kind of be on the Nebuchadnezzar ship, just kind of sitting, and just he's wide awake. So Trinity goes off, and he's like, and she's like, "Hey, you can't sleep," and he's like, "No." So Trinity's like, "Well, like maybe eventually like she'll be able to give you answers," which is Oracle, because eventually Neo wants to go ahead and call Oracle so that way he can get another appointment with her so that way he can kind of talk about things. So Neo is to, of course, have this problem where he's like, well, like I honestly just don't know like what I can do. I just don't know what I can do right now. And so it's like, well, yeah, it's like Neo can do so much stuff, but he doesn't know like how to like stop things or how to win this whole war because nobody gave him the like, oh yeah, just hit this button uh and just kick this guy and then done. Like no one's giving him the blueprint of how to win this. He doesn't know how he's gonna go and accomplish everything so that way everybody's like, dang, that Neo guy, he just kicked 20 people and won this war. Like maybe it just took just him kicking those 20 people to just win all of this, but I don't know how he did it. So we go on and we have Morpheus, who is to call a meeting with the captains. We have Roland here, which we'll kind of see him at the end of this film, the kind of guy in the with the kind of the white hair, and he has this suit that doesn't like look like it's like fitting him for whatever reason. It feels like he's wearing these clothes, and it doesn't make sense for him to wear these clothes, but he's there. We have Soren, who of course is the kind of the bald guy, just being honest, and we'll see him eventually towards kind of like the third act of this movie. Or Roland, we'll see him at the very end. We have Niobe, who is actually in Surrection as a much older woman, but like I didn't realize like right out of the gate Niobe was in this movie because it's been a while since I've seen it, and so we have all these captains here, everybody but Commander Locke, and so everybody's going on and seeing what is to be the new information. And so Niobe is to mention that the Sentinels are digging, and that supposedly there's 250,000 Sentinels going on and trying to wipe out both Zion and anywhere else of their defenses. And they end up getting this information from a place called Osiris, I believe. So everybody is like, oh my god, like this seems like a real threat here. And so Morpheus ends up coming in, and of course, like, Morpheus is to have this belief that since he now has Neo, that the war is already won. And that pretty much here, that he believes this so strongly, it's like, dude, like, we don't have to do what Commander Locke says. Like, we don't have to, like, no. Like, let's go on and let's just consistently be, like, out and not have to go back to Zion all that often. Because, nah, like, we're going to do our own thing. And really, how Commander Locke is really just conflicting with what Morpheus is saying, because Naomi is to, of course, want from Commander Locke's words to have all the ships make it back to Zion, because they naturally assume that all of these ships being there will help win this war. And Morpheus is like, no. You know what we're going to do? We're going to disobey. We're going to go off and do our own thing. And these other captains are like, Morpheus, you're crazy. Like, no. Like, if anything, like, this will get you in trouble with Commander Locke. And Morpheus is like, like, oh well, I'm freaking Morpheus. I'm the guy that's on the freaking poster. Who's Commander Locke? He just showed up in this movie. Nah, whatever. So, we have Neo that is to, of course, sense something, and so he is to head out to the door entrance of this place. And so we have one character who is to open this door to, of course, have Agent Smith hand him something through this little door hole thing. So this guy is to hand Neo this envelope, and so Neo opens it, and it's the earpiece from Agent Smith, saying that Agent Smith is now free, and Neo had been a part of that. So Neo is now telling these guys to go ahead and make their way out of here and find their exit, and because there's agents coming, and so let everybody know this is going on. And so all of a sudden we have these agents bashing through this door. We have Agent Thompson, we have Agent Johnson, who's to be kind of the main new Agent Smith. He's to be kind of the head agent here. So we have these agents kind of coming in, bashing through this door. And so they're like, oh, it's the anomaly. And they're like, well, should we really go after him? And should we really face him? And they're like, well, yeah, we might as well, because he's only human. And so they go on and they start having Agent Johnson go and, like, fighting Neo. And Neo is just kind of, like, one-handing him. Like, of course, at the end of the very first film, now Neo is still kind of doing all these blocks with this one hand. And he's like, oh, upgrades. Like, saying that these agents have gone and improved. And so we have, like, Agents 2.0, I guess. But it feels like these agents don't really have a face to them like the original Agent Smith did. Like, it seems just all of these characters are honestly just kind of replaceable. Yeah, they might have certain names and whatever, but it just kind of feels like these characters just, like, interchangeable, or not, like, it could be anybody because it doesn't matter at this point. We don't have that like prominent uh, agent like we did in the first film, but we still technically have Agent Smith in this movie. So we go on and have Neo eventually going and fighting these agents and seemingly taking them down yet again, and then he decides to go and fly off. So we have Agent Smith talking to himself, and he's like, well, like, I guess, like, we weren't to expect any different from, like, Mr. Anderson, that, like, what had happened before is to happen here again, where Neo is to go on and take down these new and improved agents, because, like, Neo is still better than them. So we then go on and eventually have everybody start to get unhooked because everybody is starting to make their way to Zion so that way Morpheus can go and talk to Commander Locke. And so people eventually start to get unhooked here, and so we have Link and we have Morpheus, and so Link is going on and telling Morpheus that there seems to be a huge amount of Sentinel activity kind of going on where they are. And Morpheus is like, you know what? If you want to continue to go on and like work on this ship or be on this ship or drive this ship or whatever, I don't know exactly what he says here, but he's like, one thing that you need to do is you need to trust me. So Link is like, okay, sir, like, I'll do that, sir. Morpheus is like, okay. So we have Morpheus and we have Link go ahead and have Control help them dock to make their way to Zion. So once these characters all get out of their ship and they go on, and Neo is to find this kid who is to say, hey, Neo, I'm going to be on this ship pretty soon because I'm going to be turning, I think he's going to be turning like 17 or 18 soon. And he's like, hey, yeah, like I definitely want to go on the Nebuchadnezzar. And so Neo is like, well, that's great. It's like, they kind of honestly don't really like this kid all that much. Like, it kind of feels like this kid is kind of just like a fanboy of Neo. And so we have this kid who, of course, is to say that Neo helped him be free. And Neo's like, no, you did that yourself. Later on, when they end up leaving Zion, we have this kid coming back, giving Neo a gift. That is the kid that was to be psychically going and moving that spoon, reminding him that there is no spoon. And so that was kind of a cool reference there. But anyways, at one point in this movie, we also have Agent Smith, or no, wait, this happens, I think, later. Yeah, I'll cover that later. Because Agent Smith goes on and fuses himself with one of the people that are to unplug in this movie. And that guy is to be Bane. But I'll get to that like later. There's a whole like sequence of things then that happens. So we go on here and we make it to Zion, and so immediately Morpheus is telling Link to get the ship ready as quickly as possible because who knows if they're gonna have to like who knows what's gonna happen here. So Morpheus, of course, goes on and is to, of course, talk to Commander Locke, and so we end up finding out here that the main problem between Locke and Morpheus is the fact that Morpheus was dating Niobe, and it seemed that Morpheus had gone on to see the Oracle at one point, and then all that changed. That all of a sudden Naomi had went on to go with Commander Locke, and that's where the whole kind of tension between those characters is going on, because we have Niobe, who a lot of times is to want to do anything to help out Morpheus, while also Niobe is to be with Commander Locke. So there's kind of that whole tension and argument and whatever there. So Morpheus goes on and sees Commander Locke, and we have it to where, of course, Morpheus and Commander Locke aren't seeing eye to eye because Commander Locke is to think the only reason they're going to succeed in Zion is have every ship here, and Morpheus is like, well, like I believe that it doesn't matter how many ships we're going to have, like we already have ourselves a way to win this war. And Locke is like, well, what? And Morpheus is like, well, obviously it's Neo. And so Locke is just like, you know what? Like, I don't want to hear any of this prophecy bullshit. Like, no, I don't want to have, like, a religious belief kind of thing that all of this is going to be tied onto some prophecy or uh, some things of, like, I want a actual, like, mathematical, rational thing that's going to say that, like, we are going to beat this war simply because we just have bigger numbers than someone else has. That's what Locke is really thinking here. So we really just have it towards like agree to disagree, and Morpheus isn't going to get any kind of discipline done to him simply because there are people that are to really just be on Morpheus's side. We have like councilmen and stuff like that who only care about Morpheus and Neo and the Nebuchadnezzar, and that's all they give a rip about, because they also believe that Morpheus can win this war and Neo can win this war, and so they are kind of drinking that same Kool-Aid as Morpheus is. So after that whole disagreement, which kind of just goes nowhere, we transition to eventually have Councilman Heyman. I want to say it's Heyman. Haman? Heyman? We have this counselor going on and throwing this party at Zion, and we also have Link, who is going back home to his girlfriend, who is named Z. I think it's Z. Yeah. Link is going off to see his girl named Z with, I think, her sister or somebody there. That's, I think her name is Kaz. Cas? Kaz? Kaz? And so when Link is to come into the house, he's like, "Where's my possess? Hey!" Because all of a sudden there's kids in the room, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you guys are getting so big. Like, hey, pick me up, and like, you guys are really looking really strong. You guys are gonna probably pick me up at some point." So Kaz and her, I'm assuming her kids, are to leave here. And so Link is going and talking to Z because it seems that Link is in trouble because Link is just so upset that, or Z is so upset with Link because Link is to be on the Nebuchadnezzar that doesn't come back to Zion all that often because there's so many ships that come back 2 to 3 times more than the Nebuchadnezzar does. And so, but Link is to tell Z, it's like, well, hey, like, the reason why I'm on this ship is because of Tank and because of Dozer, and I guess he is a brother of them. So, for some reason, both Tank and Dozer believed so strongly in Morpheus, even though Z is to say, it's like, well, but Morpheus is crazy, and Link is like, I get that. I get that. But, like, there is something about what Neo can do here that, like, I can believe in them too. And so, like, the safest place is probably with the Nebuchadnezzar, anyways, because probably a number of these ships are all probably going to die. But the Nebuchadnezzar has a pretty good record about with the exclusion of their operators, because in the first film, like, those guys wiped out. But like the Nebuchadnezzar, like, pretty much all of their guys end up getting freaking wiped out in the first film. But still, if you're gonna be on a ship, the Nebuchadnezzar is probably the right ship to choose, because screen time more so than anyone else. So when Link is to leave Sion to go back to the Nebuchadnezzar, Z goes and gives her good luck charm to Link. And so he's like, I don't believe in this stuff. And Z's like, wear it anyways. Like, it was always a good luck charm for me, so freaking wear it anyways. So Link is like, okay, alright. So Link and everybody go off to this rave party, whatever. So, like, as soon as both Neo and Trinity are to get into Zion, they get into this elevator and they're making out. Because they're like, hey, like, we just want to go at it, and that's all we want to do when we get here. And so when everybody is partying at Zion after Morpheus is to like, deliver his speech, that there's a reason why everyone's here, because they believe, like, he believes that they can win this war, and like he ends up doing this whole speech about belief and this and that. So Neo and Zion, or Neo and Zion, Neo and Trinity are going off because they're kissing one another, and Neo is to mention to Trinity that he missed her. Like, dude, you have spent I don't know how long with this woman, and you're all like, I missed you, babe. But I guess, like, that's, I guess, real love there, where we have, like, Neo who just wants, like, Trinity just, like, at his side at all times. So if there's ever a time where she's not there, it's like, I just kind of missed me some of that. So Neo and Trinity are going at it because since everybody's at Zion and they're just raving it out and doing whatever the heck that they're doing here, just banging on drums and stomping their feet, and because Morpheus is telling everyone here, like, hey, uh, we want to tell these sentinels and our enemies that we are not afraid. Like, show them that we're not afraid by going on and banging your feet and doing all this noise, so all the sentinels could be like, hey, where the party at? Why wasn't I invited, bro? What the bro? So we have Naomi going on and wanting to dance with Morpheus because Naomi was saying, it's like, well, hey, I know one point in time that you used to dance, and Morpheus is saying, it's like, well, there's some things that never change. And then all of a sudden Commander Locke is like, squeeze me? And then Morpheus is just like, well, but then there also are some things that do change. Locke doesn't say squeeze me, but it felt like a funny thing to say there. Where Locke is going on and seeing Naomi, and he's seeing her talk to Morpheus, so want to break that up. So after, of course, Neo and Trinity, of course, are to be tired and sleep it off because lovemaking, we again have Neo that's still worried about Trinity possibly dying here. And so Neo is kind of holding onto Trinity, and he's like, I'm worried. And she's like, I'm not going anywhere. And so they're kind of like really just like hugging one another. It's a really nice moment where like they're holding hands and like just holding on strong. So but Neo again can't sleep. So Neo goes off and is just kind of looking at all of Zion and seeing all the makeshift crap that's to be like done here for CGI. So all of a sudden the counselor Herman Hammond, the guy dies probably after these next two movies, so you never see him again. So I'm talking about the character, not the actual person. That sounds horrible. But we have this counselor come out, and he's being nice, and he's asking Neo, it's like, hey, do you mind if like I just kind of be out here and give you company? And Neo's like, well, yeah, I can use some company. So they go on and they talk about the machines and how there's so many machines helping them like survive, and there's a large number of machines that are going and trying to kill them. And so they're really going on and talking about control here, and Neo is to go on and say, it's like, well, yeah, like we can decide at one point to turn off all of these machines. And so we have the one thing that the counselor is to say, it's like, well, you know what, there's this one machine out there that is to go on and do what it does, and I don't understand like how it does what it does. Just like with you, Neo, like I don't understand how you can do the things that you can do. So yeah, so we just have this counselor that is kind of grateful for Neo being able to do the things that he can do, but he just doesn't understand it. Like, how is it that Neo can do this and not everyone else can? Now that they have all technically been free or whatever. You would have thought at one point you would add all of a sudden everybody just becoming the one, because I would assume that's how naturally this movie was to progress, to have everybody unlock that the one power. But it seems like in Resurrection, it seems like they get close to that, technically. I'll leave that at that. So we go on, and Neo and everybody are all leaving. That's of course when, of course, Neo is to get that spoon, and the dream that Neo was to have when after he was banging away with with Trinity. That sounds awful, but there's only one way that I can call lovemaking scenes without actually having to say certain words. So Neo was dreaming about two guys trying to get a phone call to get out of the Matrix, and we have Bane, who is to try and get a phone call to get out of the Matrix. But then all of a sudden, Agent Smith is to arrive and fuse himself, kind of freaking finger or fist his way, or what is the perfect word here? Hand freaking jab into the chest to fuse Agent Smith into this Bane character to then have him call. And when he is outside the Matrix, he is still Agent Smith inside this Bane character, weirdly. And so this Bane character is like slicing, like carving into his hand and going on and wanting to assassinate Neo. But then all of a sudden he decides like to just kind of hide what he's doing from behind his back while this kid goes off and gives Neo the spoon. He's like, I'll get to you later. I'll get to you later. So we go on and we have Neo, who goes off to, of course, go and talk to the Oracle. Holy crap, we've already gotten to 42 minutes in, and I'm like seemingly maybe halfway through the gosh darn film. Maybe? Question mark? Let's continue to keep on going until hopefully it doesn't take 2.5 hours to talk about this movie. So now we have Neo going and seeing the Oracle, but he has to go through that by meeting a guy named Surath. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. So Neo goes and meets a guy named Surath, and Surath ends up having to fight Neo until he can figure him out. Until he can just go, oh, you're the one. Like, you're Anderson. And Neo's like, well, I could have just told you that. And the guy's like, no, I needed to figure it out. And so it's like, okay. Like, Neo is to see, like, the Matrix thing of Surath, and he realizes that it's some... he realizes that this is not a real person, that this is probably some control, and Neo doesn't really know if he can actually trust this person, because when Neo actually goes and meets up with the Oracle in this film, when Surath is going through these program exits and these back doors to make it to the Oracle, and then Neo, of course, is to make it to the Oracle, he's to say the same kind of thing of like, well, like, I don't know if I can actually trust you, Oracle. And so that's when the Oracle, of course, is to give Neo this thing of candy, and Neo is like, well, like, I'm thinking that you know if I'm going to take this candy or not. And so what is the point of this choice? And the Oracle's like, well, you already know what the choice is. Now you have to understand why you made the choice. And it's gonna burn your noodle to just to no end to try to figure out why you've already made that choice. So we have the Oracle breaking down programming and eventually going and you're seeing like a couple of birds. And so Oracle is mentioning how, of course, there is to have been a person who had developed this program for these birds, or a thing to watch over the trees, or any number of things. And eventually, if someone was to mention that they had saw a ghost, a vampire, or a werewolf, that's uh, somebody doing something that they shouldn't have done. And eventually, that part of that program will eventually get deleted or go into deletion just because it was something somebody should not have done. So we have Oracle that is to mention to Neo that she'll get to his dreams, but she at first wants Neo to understand like what he's really doing here is to make a choice, to put people's lives in his hands. Because Neo is to explain about his dream and how Trinity is to possibly die. And so Oracle is like, well, did you see her die? And Neo's like, no. And it's like, well, there's probably a good reason for that. Because maybe it's something you're going to prevent. Maybe her life is to be really put into your hands, and so you have to make that choice. Like, in the very first film, Oracle was to mention that it's like, well, hey, like, you're gonna have to make a choice to uh, to have Morpheus live or die, and it seems like we have that still same conundrum in this film, where it's like it just kind of feels like in these movies we do technically have some recycling going on. No offense to whoever wrote this film, but yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of just like they just keep going in the same direction for these films. So we go on and we talk about this, and so they break down all of this stuff. So Sarath is to go and touch the hand of the Oracle, and they, of course, are to leave. And so there's no cookie this time around. That after you eat this candy, you'll feel right as rain. Here's the goofy thing, though. We, of course, have the Oracle take the candy, and we end up finding out the candy is red. We're gonna see in other films later on, even in the latest film, we have it to where like the whole color scheme of things, like we have a red thing or we have a blue thing, and we're gonna consistently see like that kind of thing, which I always kind of feel is fun. That maybe if you have a certain choice, that's the red pill, and if you don't want to make that choice, that's where something should be blue. I don't know. So hence why she has red candy in this movie, I guess, because she had made the choice to consume said candy because she thoroughly enjoys it. And that's the pickle that I guess we're all in, is like, man, I want to see the red and blue of everything, but we don't get that. But Oracle is to mention about the pickle that people is in anyways. So now the Oracle and Sarath are to leave, but the Oracle is to drop to Neo that he is going to have to go and find the Keymaker. And the Keymaker is to, of course, be kept by a guy called the Merovingian. Merovingian? And so he'll need to go to La Forêt, some restaurant of places, and La Vraie, where it's LE space VRIA, La Vraie. I'm sure I'm ill pronouncing that. I apologize, but IMDb ends up having it to where you end up having the woman that's in the movie that's in that restaurant who ends up having the cake in that big O moment. Uh, they end up saying where the name of this place is. So luckily for that, or I wouldn't know where that freaking place is. I'm not going to go with huge settings and whatever and tell you where everything is because I don't have that kind of time. So we go on, and so all of a sudden we now have Neo being faced with Agent Smith. And so Agent Smith is to go on and tell Neo that Agent Smith, like I'm going to paraphrase here, Agent Smith, when he fought Neo and for how that all ended, Agent Smith was destroyed. But there was something in him, something that fused between him and Neo, that all of a sudden, like, something changed in him, and he knew the rules, but he decided to stay. He decided to disobey. And so the main reason why Agent Smith is here is the purpose. The purpose that is to eventually start to have all these other Agent Smiths starting to chime in. The purpose that connects us, the purpose that binds us, the purpose that drives us, so on and so forth. We start to get these agents that are starting to come all in here to deliver this dialogue. So we have Neo that all of a sudden is to now have to fight all of these Agent Smiths, and they keep on coming in from the woodwork every frickin' where. To where all of a sudden we have this one woman who's kind of going on of like, hey, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden we have an agent that just kind of morphs from this woman, and then Agent Smith is like, oh, hey! me. And then the other Agent Smith is like, oh, more me. It's like, me. So we go on and we have Neo going on and fighting these Agent Smiths. And he's going on and doing a pretty good enough job. He's going on and like roundhouse kicking all these agents, and it gets to the point to where eventually it gets so overwhelming that Neo eventually has to go and break this pole out of this ground and kick this concrete or smash this concrete against one of the agents, and they fall over, and he's like, yeah, come on. So we have Neo going and taking this pole now, and just he's like whipping this thing around, trying to take down all these agents. We have this kind of like crazy cool domino effect where we have Neo who ends up getting like tossed, and he's like being pushed away, and he's knocking all these agents down like they're freaking dominoes, and it looks awesome. This big, massive of a fight where I'm like, man, have this thing just never end. We end up having Neo who's going on this pole, and he's like just going and like swinging around, kicking all these agents. Pretty freaking sweet. So Neo eventually is to get dogpiled onto, where all these agents are just going and just jumping on top of Neo. And so we have the one Agent Smith who's whispering sweet nothings into Neo's ear, telling him, like, I'm inevitable. And then that's when Neo turns around and he's like, well, I'm Iron Man. I'm the one, bear. This feels like freaking like Avengers Endgame. So Neo goes on and he thrusts with, I guess, his weird, goofy Neo strength. All of these agents, they end up going flying off, and then that's when Neo goes flying off with his Superman power. So, because he like takes one agent and he starts like grabbing it and he's like slinging it around, but then he is going and flying off. He flies away, like as per usual, like he did with the other. Like we just have Neo just fly a lot. Where eventually Link is saying like, yeah, he's doing his Superman thing. So we God, I'm trying to think of where we transition here. Uh, so we go on and we have Neo that is to kind of like give these guys a briefing about what had all gone on here after he is to disconnect, and how we had Agent Smith who was trying to like put his hand into Neo and try to eventually take over, but Neo for some reason wouldn't allow that. So we have them kind of breaking down everything, and Link was to say that Agent Smith was to be an agent, but like his coding like didn't look like one weirdly. So we push on to now have them go to this restaurant where they are to go and meet with the Merovingian. Merovingian? Fingian? That's going to be really hard to say at some point. So, because we have some dialogue coming up. Persephone? Persephone is his wife. All right, this is going to be fun because I have to describe these things. So we have Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus going to the place where this guy is to go and try to get this keymaker away from this guy. And so we end up seeing these three characters go into this elevator, and so Trinity and kind of Morpheus are kind of asking Neo, it's like, well, hey, like the coding of this building, like what does it look like to you? And Neo's like, yeah, it looks like there's bombs on every single one of these like floors. And Trinity's like, oh, so that looks bad for us. Yeah, I guess it does. So it seems like Neo is to not really understand the coding of this building. It seems weird. So all three of these characters are to go and meet this character, and so we of course have them ask for the keymaker, and we of course have the Merovingian who is to be like, well, here's the thing, I want to know why that you guys want the keymaker. And Neo's like, well, you already know why. And he's just like, well, like, here's the thing. Like, there is to, of course, be this cause and effect and causality, and that the only people that are to have choice are the people that are to have power. And because we have the Oracle who's to say that this guy is powerful and all that he cares about is becoming more powerful. So that's a reason why this guy is to not really want to get rid of this keymaker, because like that's kind of the one thing that he is to not want to give up, because that would be giving up some kind of power, and heaven forbid you do that, right? So we have this guy who is going on and talking about speaking the French language. He goes on and is to say some certain things in French. He is to mention, it's like, God, I love the language. It's like wiping your butt with silk. And so we also go on and we have, of course, this guy who is to mention that he had gone on and made a program specifically for a cake, and that he is to give this cake to some woman, and he's like, I just want to like see what happens here. So this woman is going on and eating this cake, and so this guy is to explain how, like, as this woman is to eat this cake and drink this wine, how this girl is trying to understand, like, why this moment is happening. Like, is it the wine? Is it the cake? What is it? And she's trying to figure it out, but then all of a sudden, her nethers, her down below, just freaking explodes from whatever this is, which she doesn't understand what it is. And so she goes on and is to, of course, rush to the bathroom. And so we, of course, have the Merovingian, who is to want to, of course, go to the bathroom also, because he is to say, it's like, well, here's cause and effect for you. Like, I drank too much wine, and now I have to go for a piss. So this guy, of course, is to leave, and so both Trinity, Neo, and Morpheus are realizing that this is a waste of time, and that they're not going to get this keymaker. So we go on and have them go back under the elevator to be greeted by Persephone, whatever this girl's name is. the daughter of the wife of the other guy, of which that I've said way too many times this guy's name, because good God, does anybody have a simple name in this thing? Not really. Except for the twins, 1 and 2, because they look the freaking same, I guess. So, and I guess we have Cain and Abel that's coming up soon. So, this girl is to, of course, go and offer Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus the keymaker, but she wants something in exchange. So, they go on to this bathroom, and this woman is confessing that her marriage really isn't going all that well, and that she wants to go back to a time where she's to remember really feeling in love. And so this girl is to make this offer of like, hey, I'll give you the keymaker as long as Neo is to kiss me like he would kiss Trinity. And so Trinity is like, well, how about you go and eat a bullet? Kind of thing. Like, I am going to like tell you that you can go and kiss my gun. And so Neo is like, okay, like, let me try. So Neo goes on and kisses this girl, and she's like, no, that's not going to work. And then Neo's like, well, wait a minute. So then Neo goes in and has this long stretch of a kiss, and it's really, like, passionate, maybe. So all of a sudden, once this girl is done kissing Neo, she goes on to Trinity, and she's like, I envy you. So Now the girl is to live up to her promise because if she doesn't, Neo can, or Trinity can kill this woman for not living up to this promise. So we have this girl going and taking this key to take them to the Maravigian's mansion that's seemingly out in the middle of freaking nowhere. Like, once we open the door, there's just a huge amount of mountains somewhere. Like, I don't know exactly what this place is, and I couldn't have been bothered to take the time to come up with the actual name of this place. It's just this big, massive mansion of a place. So, we have this girl all of a sudden going and seeing these two guys that I guess in the IMDb are called Cain and Abel here. And she goes on and she is to, of course, kill one of the guys, but then she is to tell the other, it's like, well, hey, like, I can either kill you right here and now, or I can have you go off to find the Maravigion and tell him like what I'm doing because I'm sure he'll be in the women's bathroom going and getting a BJ from the woman in the bathroom in there. So the guy runs off, and so we have this girl go and do what she is to say she is to do here, and go and retrieve the keymaker. So now we end up having it where, of course, once these people are to leave this environment, all of a sudden we have the Merovingian Vision. The guy with the stuff in the things, you know. God. These names. He ends up coming, of course, with all of his men, his twins that are to have this weird, goofy power of sorts that they kind of phase in and out of things. And this guy has all the goons, all of these henchmen, and so we have both Trinity and Morpheus who are going through their own secret door to make it to some parking lot because Neo is saying like, hey, I'll take care of these guys, you guys go run off because the keymaker is the only thing that matters. It's kind of like Neo in the first movie where Morpheus is saying like, get Neo out, he's the only thing that matters, and then he breaks through the one wall. We have Neo kind of doing the same thing here. So the keymaker is to go and open this door to some parking lot. Trinity and Morpheus are trying to follow this keymaker to all of a sudden have one of the twins trying to desperately make it through here. And Morpheus goes and slams one of the twins' arms in this door, and Trinity is shooting it off. And this twin is not, like, seemingly, like, crying in pain here or wanting to move this arm. And so we eventually have the other twin phase through this door and is now having this blade up against Trinity, forcing for this door to be open, forcing for now Morpheus to go and fight these two twins while Trinity and the Keymaker are going off into this one car. Let's get back to what is going on with Neo now. So Neo is to go on and is to get this Verovision really upset. So now we have it to where, of course, this guy has them just kind of like, open up your guns on this guy. And we just have, of course, Neo who just kind of puts his hand up. All the bullets just kind of come pelting at him. And he's just like, meh, plop. So, like, well, I guess we're going to have to go with a different strategy. to take this guy out. So yeah, guys, like get all the weapons, get all of the weapons. So now all these guys are coming at Neo with these weird, goofy, ancient-looking weapons. And so Neo is going and doing a pretty good job at fighting these guys off. We have this one moment where Neo is blocking this sword with his hand of all things, and then he ends up kind of having this little blood mark on his hand, and so like, well, hey, there we go. He is human, and so now Neo just continues to fight these guys without any kind of real weapons here. But then eventually he has this like weird force power where he then grabs these sais, and now he's like defending against these guys with these sais. And so we end up having Neo trapping one guy with this shield like onto this wall, and I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, so we end up having that all go off, and so Neo is going to try and fight with the Merovingian, and this guy ends up going through this one door. Neo ends up opening it to find out that the door that this guy went into is to no longer be there, and so now Neo is stuck at this place, and now he has to go and fly to where both Morpheus and Trinity are. So Morpheus, Trinity, and the Keymaker are now all driving in this car because, of course, Morpheus is to get away from these guys, these twins, and so now these twins are chasing after these guys in another car. So Trinity, Morpheus, and the Keymaker are having to forcibly drive onto the freeway. And so we have Link who's telling Morpheus, it's like, well, like I can't believe that you're wanting to do this. And Morpheus is like, what did I say, Link? And Link is like, I trust you. Like, I get it. So Trinity is telling Morpheus, it's like, hey, remember when you told me that you never wanted me to drive on the freeway because it's a suicide mission? And Morpheus is like, well, like, we just gotta do it. We just have to. So we, of course, have them on this freeway. And so all heck is breaking loose in this freeway. I don't know why my nose is so itchy. But we have all heck breaking loose on this freeway. Because not only do we have these twins following Trinity and Morpheus, but then all of a sudden Agent Johnson just appears and all these other agents just start to appear to just battle, like have this massive battle on this freeway. All chaos is really happening here. So we end up having this gun that the twins are having, of course, here, pelting this car of Trinity and Morpheus's with bullets. And so the Keymaster is kind of like just ducking like by or underneath his like by his seat, and he's just kind of like, I'm trying not to get shot here. So we eventually get to where to where agents show up and they're trying to like ram into Trinity and Morpheus's car, and we get so many freaking things happening here. Good God, is there so much to just unpack through this freeway scene. We eventually have it where both Morpheus and Trinity's car, like basically they realize how like they gotta get to a different mode of transportation because this car just ain't doing it, ain't cutting it. So speaking of cutting, we have both Trinity and the Keymaker deciding to have to jump onto this one kind kind of truck that is to have a number of other kind of shipped vehicles, which is to be mostly motorcycles on the top there. So they jump onto this truck to get this motorcycle so that way Trinity and the key maker can now ride this motorcycle to get the heck out of there. And so Morpheus is going on and is slicing through the twins' vehicle. And as their car flips over, Morpheus is to shoot the truck and just smother it with bullets to where both these twins are phasing out to try to avoid this explosion. So, but they just continue to go on and have to chase after, of course, Morpheus and Trinity. So, we eventually have it where, of course, Trinity is to go on and there is to be this seemingly one trucker that is to try, because he's now an agent, is trying to squeeze Trinity and the Keymaker to crush them, but we end up having it to where the trucker ends up just going on and crashing up against this wall. And so Trinity decides, instead of going forward, she decides to turn around and go back, going on to oncoming traffic, where all of a sudden we have all these police that are also going into oncoming traffic and creating all this chaos and so on and so forth. So we have Morpheus, who is to jump onto this this semi truck that has this trailer on it, and so Morpheus has put a knife into this truck's trailer, and then he's standing on the knife, and he's to go and grab the Keymaker from Trinity being on this motorcycle. And so the Keymaster goes and Morpheus goes and flings this Keymaker on this truck's trailer. And so with what happens with that, we end up having of course, agent making its way onto this truck trailer. So we also have a moment where Commander Locke is going and talking to the council. And so we have them talking to the council, and what really is to be the most important thing that they're talking about here, besides whatever the heck that Locke's agenda is, which doesn't really matter to them, all that they hear is that the Nebuchadnezzar ship is not with them. And they're like, well, hey, where's the Nebuchadnezzar? Like, we need to go and find that ship. And Commander Locke is just like, huh? Like, all you give a about is that one ship? Like, no, like, he's gone. And, like, we're not going to spend any kind of ship going and trying to find them. And they're like, well, no, let's go and let's send people out to go and find the Nebuchadnezzar. Like, let's go and let's send a ship. And Commander Locke is like, I'm sorry, that would take far too long for one ship to try and find another. And then like, well, we'll send two ships then. Commander Locke's like, good God, you people, you're morons. That's what I would have said. Like, you guys are stupid. Like, dude, you're wasting all these resources to go and find one. If the ship is gone, like, who cares? If you can find Neo and Morpheus in the Matrix, I'm sure they're still alive. But it's whatever. So we have, of course, two ships who are to go on and say that they are willing to go and find the Nebuchadnezzar. One, of course, is to be Sauron's ship, and so he ends up answering the call. And then Bane is going to his captain saying, like, hey, yeah, like, we should go and help them out too. Because, of course, he wants to be closer to Neo. He just really is die hard loving that Neo. And Bane's captain is just like, shut up, Bane. Like, no. So we, of course, have Naomi, who's like, well, I'll answer the call. And Commander Locke is like looking at Naomi. He's like, seriously? And Naomi's like, well, yeah. Like, I'm going to go. And he's like, okay, fine. Like obviously you're just jonesing for more of that Morpheus. So we go on and we, of course, have these guys trying to find the Nebuchadnezzar. And so we have Niobe going and calling Link and asking where Morpheus is, where everyone is, and Link is just saying, "Hey, just follow the sirens." So Morpheus is now going and trying to fight this agent, and really Morpheus, the way he's kind of fighting here feels so much like Trinity in the very first movie with these kind of like crouching tiger hidden kick things. Like he's kind of doing these like crane maneuvers and stuff like that. Like a lot of the stuff that he's bringing to the table like doesn't exactly feel like how he was fighting in the first film. I don't know what's going on here. So but we also have to have a ton of this like balancing act like stuff going on here where Morpheus is going and just kind of balancing on the very tail end of this truck, or he's having to, like, by his hands, just grab onto the very end of this truck, and he's just holding on by his hands because his rest of his body is up in the air, and he's like, whoa, I gotta balance this. And so we have Morpheus who is to kind of like be almost like flopping like backwards. And so he ends up falling off of this trailer to have Niobe swoop in with her car and just grab Morpheus at the last ditch second. And it's like, yeah, like that feel good moment. Morpheus is just like, oh, it's Naomi. Like, oh, just give me like around the truck because I'm going to go and fly up there and freaking do my crane again to go after this agent. Because this agent is telling the Keymaker that he needs to be going into deletion because this character has no purpose. So Morpheus comes flying in, kicking this agent off of this trailer, and so now we have a agent inside this semi truck controlling where it's going. And so now we have one semi truck on its way to colliding with this semi truck that Morpheus and the Keymaker are on. I want to say Keymaster because I've seen Ghostbusters way too many times. So Neo, if we all remember, is to have been flying from the Merovingion's mansion, and I don't think we ever see this guy again for the rest of this film. So I don't know why I have to like. Hopefully, I never have to talk about this character again. And so we have Neo flying like a bat out of heck to make his way to wherever the heck his people are. So Morpheus, of course, is calling to Neo, and he's like, hey, Neo, if there's ever a time that I need your help, this is one of them, kind of thing. So Neo goes on, and of course, as the two trucks are colliding, and they're exploding, and Morpheus and the Keymaker are up in the air, they might die, all of a sudden we end up having, of course, Neo just rocket fire flying to catch both Morpheus and the Keymaker. And of course, Link is like, yes! He's doing his Superman thing again. Yes! And Neo perfectly grabs these characters and saves them. So, uh, so, God, where do we transition here? So now that Neo, of course, is to have this keymaker, now the keymaker has to explain what the heck they're going to do next. And basically, what they're going to do next is that they are going to have to make it to the source. There is a specific apartment that has a specific door that has a trick to it to get to the source. You have to go and knock out power to 27 blocks to, of course, be able to get to this secret door for or at a specific time. And so Soren is just going on and telling this keymaker, it's, well, hey, like, Neo can easily both take out these two buildings like that and then go to this door. And the keymaker is like, well, it doesn't work that way. Like, Neo can be the only one to open this door to make it to the source because he is to win this grand prize of being the special one who is to win everything. And so he's the only one to make it through this door. So it's better if Neo isn't the one doing everything else and then having to make it to this door because there's only a specific window of time to be able to make it there, to get to this door, to talk to this source, to eventually have this source just kind of going and replaying through supposedly Neo's life. Because this is basically like, this is your life kind of moment. Like, we have kind of the architect or this source kind of being this kind of game show like guy where he's kind of telling him like what is to be the rest of Neo's life and like what secret whatever door he should choose, but really the source is to tell him his secret. But let's go into this a little bit further. So Soren's team is to go on and take one of these power plants to go and take out the power of these XYZ blocks. But we have to have both power places taken out. And so Niobe's team is to also take out another power plant. So that way, because if one is not, or if both isn't taken out, then power ends up getting redirected from the other building. So we, of course, have Soren's building. What ends up happening is that Soren's ship ends up getting invaded by sentinels while they're going on and being connected. And so all of a sudden we have this one guy trying to rush to tell everybody, hey guys, like our like sentinels are coming in. And so all of a sudden we conveniently have this one guy who breaks a part of his ship scrambling to tell everybody this, and that accidentally ends up killing the operator and anyone who is to be able to control this ship while these people are to be sleeping away on their ship. So the Sentinels go and they wreak havoc on this person's ship, killing everybody off there. So we then go on and have these people who are trying to take out this power plant who all of a sudden all die. And we had Neo that was telling Trinity, it's like, hey, whatever you do, don't go in the Matrix. Like, don't do it anymore. Like, really just do nothing for the rest of this franchise because you're just going to be benched. You're going to sit out because I know you're going to die. Kind of thing. So, we have Niobe go on and take down her power plant, but everything is going and getting redirected from that other power plant. So, Neo and the Keymaker are, of course, going through the uh, the back door and the programming exit thing to make it to this one specific door. And they, of course, are to be met by Agent Smith, who is going, of course, to stop or try to stop Neo in his tracks. So we have now Neo having to, of course, fight out Morpheus, and like we have like Morpheus who's telling Agent Smith, it's like, well, hey, do you think a gun to the brain is going to stop you? We have like all these people that just like, eat this gun. I'm going to shoot you with this gun. Like, what are you going to do when I shoot you in the face? What's going to happen then? Well, like, Agent Smith just has a number of copies that he can eventually just bring it on in here. So, we almost have one point where Morpheus is getting, like, his hand, like, he's getting, almost turned into another Agent Smith, and Neo conveniently helps out Morpheus just in time to get all these agents away from Morpheus so that way he doesn't turn into Agent Smith. Which is kind of funny when you really look at it, because current product will, like, that's hilarious when really looking at it now. Anyways, so we eventually have it where the Keymaker is to conveniently make it to that door and unlock it, but like we still need like Morpheus, Keymaker, and Neo to make it through this one door so that way Neo can make it into the one specific door to meet the source. So what ends up happening is we have Neo like flying his way through all these Smiths, and conveniently as the Keymaker is to hold the door open, Neo and Morpheus are flying through it. So as the Keymaker is to try to close this door, he ends up getting pelted with bullets, and he ends up dying here. And he tells both Neo and Morpheus, is like, well, hey, like, this was the one thing that I needed to do. So, like, hey, me dying here is, like, my life is complete. So the Keymaker ends up dying, and I'm like, oh no, they could have used him for so many things. Not really. Not really. Like, we conveniently had when Trinity was to want to hotwire that one motorcycle, and the Keymaker was like, hey man, I already have the key. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess you are really useful. You know, give me some of that Keymaker later on. So that was like, there was some points where this character was useful, but I can't think that eventually we're gonna have this character consistently with them on these missions, so he had to die here. It only makes sense. They should have actually kept his keys though somehow. I don't know how, but they should have freaking kept that stuff. So now Morpheus is to go on and have Neo go into this source room, where of course he is to go on and have this architect tell him the kind of fraction or breakdown about how many numerous times Neo would come to certain decisions. But we have the architect also saying to Neo, it's like, like you came to this decision a lot quicker than a lot of other people. So we have the source going and telling Neo again about choice, and like the way that he phrases all of this stuff is just for me. Like after going and like talking about all of this film and then having this source guy here where he is to like break down all this stuff, like at this point I'm just like, oh my god, like come on, can you just simplify something down here? Why do you have to get so complex towards the end of the film? Come on, we're almost wrapping it up here. Good grief. So, and I'm like an hour and 35 in, and this is like a 2 hour and 18-minute movie. Good God. So, Neo is to talk to the source, and of course, it's about choice yet again. That really we just have it where choice is an illusion, and that the guy is to break down Neo's entire life with these random things of Neo at a certain age, or just some kind of random clips that they could have found from somewhere of Keanu. And then going on and showing every bit of footage from the very first Matrix film, like every bit of thing that they could find from the Matrix movie, they plapped all over these things. And so we also have it where, of course, this source is to go and break down everything that Neo could have said at one point for any of these answers. And so what it really breaks down to is a source saying that in 24 hours, Zion will fall. And of course, Neo has to say it's like, well, that's bullshit. And he's like, yeah, I figured that denial would be a response. And because Neo is saying it's like, well, like, what about the prophecy? What about me being the one? Like, aren't I here to stop all that? And it's like, not so much. Like, really, you're just to be here to just say it's like, well, hey, like, luckily they got you, but like, you're not really here to stop this war. Like, the war is gonna happen anyways. It's already been chosen that these people are going to lose because it's technically happened so many times already. Like, you're really just stopping nothing at this point. Like, what you're like, the source kind of breaks Neo down as being a pointless thing in a pointless world, and that there's nothing he can do to stop the inevitable. And so then the source after this is to say like, hey, you get to get the grand prize of choosing two different doors. You are of course are to have the one door where you can go into safety and just be having a good warm blanket to eventually just live the rest of your time on in the safety of whatever, or you can go back and go back to your people and try to save Zion, which you won't. And so we now have Neo with the choice of being saved or having to save everybody. And Neo is just like, well, like I'm just gonna go on and I'm gonna choose door number 2. And the architect is just like you won't be able to save them. It's like what you're doing is just a stupid decision. But Neo is to go out there anyways, just kind of throw some shade on this architect. But then because supposedly this architect is to mention that he is the father of the Matrix, and how the Oracle is technically the mother of the Matrix, but like, don't give her all kinds of credit about that, really. It's just, eh. So, but we still have it where Neo is talking to this source, and it's just like, again, like, the choices are honestly irrelevant, but like, we still have at the end of this, Neo still having to choose between two doors and two of his fates. So Neo goes on in door number 2 and goes off to try and save Trinity, who had stubbornly gone on to go to this power plant after Sauron's team had died, and she had gone on to take down this power plant. And so now, of course, we end up having the scene where Trinity is now falling to her death with this agent firing bullets at her and vice versa. So Neo all of a sudden is flying so fast that he all of a sudden has flames coming from behind him for some goofy reason. Neo is flying so fastly, he's burning things up behind him. So Neo crashes through this floor, blowing it up as if it's Die Hard. And so Neo goes on to now fly as fast as anything could ever fly. And Link is saying, like, oh my god, like, whatever that is, like, it's flying, it's moving faster than I have ever seen anything move. So Neo is flying so quickly that he's like having cars behind him just floating around in his wake. And so Neo, of course, is to fly to make his way to Trinity to grab her, of course, before she falls. And then all the stuff that's behind Neo and Trinity all crashes and falls and whatever. And so Neo is to go on and see Trinity, and Trinity's like, Neo, I had to do it. I had to, like, I had to do what I had to do. And so Neo's like, well, hey, Trinity, the bullet is still inside you, and so I'm going to go and try to pull it out. So Neo phases inside of Trinity to take this bullet out, and then takes the bullet. And so Trinity, of course, is to die here, and Morpheus is kind of putting stuff inside Trinity, like, hey, like, you ain't gonna go now, girl, kind of thing, and like, stay strong, Trinity. So Trinity dies, and then Morpheus is like, you, and then he walks away. He's all pissed. No, it's joking. I'm just joking. So Morpheus is to watch on to see Trinity flatline here. And so Neo is just like, well, Trinity, I know you can still listen. I know you can still hear me, because we're going to do the same scene from the first film where you're convincing me that like, you can't be in love with a dead man, so you better come back to life, kind of thing. So we have Neo that goes inside of Trinity's body and like Neo's her to live, just uses his power to force Trinity back to life as he heart grabs her, forcing her to just like, no, you're gonna live because I'm stubborn and you're just gonna live, Trinity. All of a sudden, Trinity is to have her heart just rebeat. Morpheus is like, oh my god, like, this guy can beat death? Neo is the cure for death in this freaking world. So both Neo and Trinity are, of course, to get out of the Matrix, go and get their phone call, and get the heck out of there. So the Nebuchadnezzar is to realize that they are getting a Sentinel attack. And I guess it's a Sentinel attack that they can't just fly away from. And we bizarrely have Neo, who is to be able to sense these Sentinels weirdly. And so Neo is the sense that these Sentinels are to have a bomb, and that's something that they should get out of the ship to escape from. So all of a sudden, everybody's deciding to get out of the ship to run away from this threat. And so we have Neo who's realizing, you know what, I feel something different here. And so Neo is going on and is to use his force power to take down these Sentinels, but then he ends up going into a coma shortly thereafter. To all of a sudden have uh, Link and Morpheus realize that there is another ship coming at the end of this, who I believe is called the Hammer Ship or something like that. So we have these guys go into this ship, and of course, this ship is to be with Roland, and I want to reconfirm that, but it doesn't look. Oh yeah, Roland. So Roland is going on and mentioning that they had gone on and found some other ship that was to be in this battle with these Sentinels, and somebody had pulled the EMP way too soon to eventually leave it to where there was a bunch of ships that all ended up getting taken out because some ship had decided to pull their EMP too soon, their electric magnetic pulse button. And so Morpheus is to, of course, ask, it's like, well, hey, like, why was that button pulled? And Roland's like, I don't know, but it seems that there, of course, was to be a ship that had only one survivor, and want to keep on calling? Okay. Freaking, like, scammer calls where it's like, oh, I think I can just exit the call. And it's like, no, I want to call more. I just want to get a hold of you so badly. Yeah, whatever. Whatever with these people. The freaking robocalls. Luckily, I'm at the end of my day now. It's great. So, we go on and we have Roland saying that there is to be one survivor from the ship. And so he is hoping that this one person is to have information about why they pulled that trigger for that button to leave so many of the ships defenseless against these Sentinels to just rip their ships apart. So we end up finding out that that one survivor is not only then Bane, and of course Neo is laying right next to Bane, and all of a sudden right after that it's to, of course, to be concluded. And the funny thing about me is I think I went on to watch The Matrix Reloaded like as it was coming out, and The Matrix Revolution wasn't actually a thing. But then I guess at the end credits of this movie we have a whole trailer of the Revolution movie, which I didn't realize was a thing. But anyways, the funny thing about like this movie is like, to be concluded? No, like I want to know what happens. Like, this is garbage. Like, don't give me some to be concluded thing. Come on. Like, but you're thinking of like, really a cliffhanger ending where they have to say to be concluded. Ah, you and your to be concluded. Just give me the ending and don't give me a to be concluded garbage. Like that's what kind of ticked me off more than anything was the to be concluded thing, instead of the whole like the way it just ends with that. But yeah, so hence why you have another film waiting to eventually be seen by me to possibly wrap up every single one of these Matrix films. Yeah, like we'll see about that because, good God, there's so much information to go and talk about for this film. So, if there is anything that I possibly forgot about this movie, because there's more than likely a thing where I forgot about a billion things. There's probably a whole event that I probably had forgotten about in this whole entire movie. I do apologize, but otherwise, that's the always rung of things where you have so much stuff you have to unpack in this movie, and there's a whole lot of dialogue to talk about here. And let me know what is to, of course, be your favorite part of these films. Whether it's the first Matrix movie, this one, maybe you like the Revolution one, the way that goes and does a thing. I know how that movie ends. I know how Revolution ends. I've seen. I think I've seen a bulk of the movie. Like I don't even know if I've seen all of the film. I always go on and like I'm like, did I ever really actually see that movie or not? So now, like, maybe if this seems to go well for whatever reason, maybe I'll go on and watch the other Matrix film to just kind of wrap up all these bad boys and just kind of eventually be like, yeah, I feel good that I've now watched all these and talked about all of them and whatever. So, with that said, maybe everybody's kind of doing reflections and going back to these movies because it seems that also on HBO Max, this is a popular trending thing. I guess everybody like binged watched every single Matrix movie to eventually wait for the newer one to drop on HBO Max. I didn't realize that the Resurrection movie was going to get a HBO Max release. I just naturally assumed, oh, everything is just going in theaters now, and heaven forbid you have a HBO Max release. Because I was assuming that everything was still going to be that thing of like all the movies are in theaters now and you have to watch just the bootleg version of it. I can't wait for Eternals to go on to Disney Plus and No Way Home to possibly go somewhere, and then I'll definitely rewatch that. I probably won't do like, hey guys, this is my second viewing of No Way Home. Like, I think I'll just kind of watch it whenever I can get a day of time because I just want to rewatch that movie and enjoy it because it's just an enjoyable film. Um, just like I had some enjoyment with this film, and hopefully I might enjoy Revolution from what I barely remember about that movie. So I'll probably when I watch that movie, it'll feel like the first time because I just don't remember anything about that film. Like I remember this film had a to be concluded thing on it. I think that was the one thing that I remember most about this film was it had that kind of cliffhanger to be concluded thing. But I didn't remember all of the story and breakdown because eventually my life just becomes a blur. But it's lucky that I can remember some of this stuff when I eventually need to go and talk about sequels that kind of come out of nowhere. I'm like, oh yeah, I luckily have this information in the back of my brain somehow because things just get retained after a while of just me seeing a movie a month ago and like, oh yeah, I still remember that for some reason. I don't know why, or something that I watched a million years ago. I can tell you the whole story for some goofy reason. But I'm gonna get out of here because I'm starting to ramble and rant and whatever, and I feel like after finishing this movie, I need that kind of rant because good grief. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.